My name is Mike Matoush. I'm the Vice President of Education and Curriculum here at the CE Shop. So I manage the team that's responsible for developing and maintaining all of our real estate educational content. One of the most significant mistakes that pre-licensing education students make is they procrastinate, like many of us like to do, and don't get through their course in a quick enough fashion or according to a schedule. While self-paced online education offers flexibility and significant advantages, it also requires a lot of self-discipline and personal motivation to complete. So what we see a lot of times is a much higher rate of course completion when courses are completed under a more aggressive timeline or a more prescribed schedule. So depending on the specific state, the number of students who complete their program start to finish is typically about 10 to 20% higher for those who are able to complete within the first 90 days. So the other benefit of sticking to a prescribed schedule and maintaining that schedule is students tend to enjoy a higher success rate on their licensing exam, specifically on the first attempt at passing their licensing exam. So generally speaking, students who complete their course quicker report that they pass their exam on the first attempt at a much higher level. And there's a substantial amount of content in a pre-licensing course, and it makes sense that students who stick with a more refined schedule would have more success. Since they're working with a shorter timeline, it allows for greater knowledge retention. So we always encourage our students to not only create a schedule that's manageable for them, but then of course to stick to that schedule. And of course, life happens. We all know that. And that's one of the great things about online education is that you can get back in, adjust your schedule, and still catch up. But it's important to do that if you do find yourself falling behind. The individual schedule that's going to work for each student is going to depend on a variety of things. One, of course, is that student's availability. Not everybody can put 20 or 30 hours worth of work into a course per week. Some people might only have 8, 10, 12 hours that they're able to contribute. But the important thing is to look for, as a student, to ask yourself, what can I contribute on a weekly basis towards my success in this course? And then stick with that schedule. Set aside that time to do it. All pre-licensing courses are a little bit different. They vary in length, they vary in the amount of time that students have to complete them. What is consistent though, is that students have the option of setting their own schedule. So as a student in a pre-licensing course, you want to first figure out what amount of time, what is my bandwidth, what I can contribute, and then you work with that backwards. And how many weeks do I have? How many hours long is this course? So if you've got a 60-hour long course, you can only contribute 10 hours a week. Of course, you want to be realistic about the amount of time it's going to take to get through that, but give yourself some cushion as well. Some topics in an online course take longer than other topics to get through, and depending on learning style and base knowledge to start, it may take some students longer to get through their content than what that minimum number of hours is. So obviously give yourself a little bit of extra time, but plan realistically based on the number of hours that are required to complete the course, or the set of courses in some cases, compared to what your availability is. And then again, stick with it. Pushing course completion or waiting until the very end is never a very effective strategy for a couple of reasons. One, it creates a lot of stress. I mean, just bringing something down to the wire, where if a course expires, it can be costly. And specifically, if you don't finish your course by the expiration date, you may end up having to repurchase the course in its entirety, or where it's allowed by state, and some states allow it, some don't, where it's allowed by state, you may have the option of purchasing additional extensions, Either way, there's a cost associated with that, having to repurchase the course or purchase extensions. So we don't want that. We want our students to get through the course in the amount of time, within at least the amount of time that they are originally allotted towards the expiration date. So be mindful of that expiration date, plan for it, and give yourself some cushion. Don't get too close to it. It can be costly. Well, yeah, for CE, the stakes can be even higher than for pre-licensing because, yes, it can mean a lapse in license activity. Or again, just like in the case of a pre-licensing student, waiting until the end of the renewal period can add a lot of unnecessary stress. Whereas if you just get it done a little bit early, you can kind of relax and also, of course, get more out of the course content. When you're having to rush through the course content, you might not be able to do any additional reflection, a deeper dive into some of the more optional materials that might be in the course. So giving yourself that extra time will allow students to get more out of their course. Online education in general, not just in real estate, but online education in general requires a lot of self-discipline and motivation to get through the course and get through it effectively. So when you don't have your peers and you don't have an instructor looking over everything that you do, that's up to you to stay on track.